Daniel Jeremiah joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, DJ?
How you doing, Rich? I haven't had any interesting packages delivered here today.
You sure about that? You sure about that? I mean, the combine packet that NFL Media Research puts out might be heavier than the box that Tony just described. You know,
and I think Bill Smith might have spent more time putting those combine notes together than they actually put time putting Carl Eller's bust together.
Full blush, first blush right now, Daniel. Who are we going to be talking about the most when we're done with the combine? Which group?
Well, I think for a couple different reasons. We're always going to be talking about the quarterbacks. So we'll be talking about how Winston and Mariota did going through the interview process and what we're hearing about what Tampa's going to do. But I think the player that's going to create the most buzz is going to be the wideout from Miami, Philip Dorsett, because I think he's got a chance to make a run at that record there. So I think really somebody going under 4.3, that'll create some buzz.
You think he's the one that could make Chris Johnson squirm the most? Is what you're saying?
He could at least force Chris Johnson to fire up his Twitter and tweet out that he's relieved after he runs a little bit slower than him.
Now, why is Mariota no longer considered #1 overall? Is it because of the way Ohio State beat Oregon up and sort of made him look one-dimensional when hit in the mouth, Daniel?
Well, Rich, he was never, I can just kind of speak for myself, and I never thought he was the top guy. Now, I know there are people out there that I talk to around the league that still feel like, have felt all along that he was the top guy. I've never been totally in love with him. I think he's somebody that you believe in him as a kid. You believe in how hard he's going to work, how smart he is, that he's going to figure things out going into an NFL offense. But, man, there's so much projection with him, whereas I've preferred Winston from what I've seen on the field because everything that I see from him, I easily translate. I went to the Rose Bowl, and I watched Mariota throw for 1 billion yards, and I watched Winston have the fumble that everybody kind of had a good laugh at. But I left that stadium thinking one of these guys is running an NFL offense, and the other guy isn't. And so I felt more comfortable with Winston watching him on the same field than I did with Mariota.
Is that why you think Mayock's saying that he's a project for everybody but Philadelphia? Because that would be the NFL offense that Mariota's running.
Oh, yeah. That's an easy transition for him. No question. One of the things I get a lot is, there's so many teams in the shotgun right now. So why is it that big of a deal for him to come in? He's in a shotgun offense. Well, it's not just lining up in the shotgun. You line up in the shotgun, you take in the NFL, you take a 3-step drop, you take a full drop, and you operate your offense from the gun. I would say 50% of his passes are him sitting there taking the snap, riding a running back with a fake, raising up and throw it. He's not even taking a drop from the gun. There's so much you're just guessing on with him.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. Can you sit through a 60-second break right there? Thanks, DJ. Joining me here back on the Rich Eisen Show. So do you think Winston and or Mariota will spin it in a couple of weekends, or are they just going to do the I'm putting my sweatshirt on, my agent says don't throw at the combine?
The easy line now, right, Rich, which we've heard the last few years. You know what? I'm selfless, and I want to draw the attention to the rest of my teammates at my pro day. So as an act of selflessness, I will wait and throw at my pro day.
You know what? And we get accused at the NFL Media Group and NFL Network of complaining that it's who are we to say anything. But, if you are going to be a competitor in the National Football League and nothing ever goes easy, nothing ever comes to you easy, there will be times when you're going to be throwing to your own receivers after weeks and months of trying to be on the same page, and you'll still miss a throw. Give the evaluators some credit, and also just go out there and spin it. Just throw it. What's the big deal if you overthrow a guy that runs the wrong route or doesn't get the ball? Or what's the big deal, right?
Well, you remember, right, with Cam Newton, he parked a couple of them up in the stands, and last I checked, he was the first pick in the draft. When you're evaluating it, the situation there. You want to see how the ball comes out of his hands. You want to see the velocity. You want to see him, take a drop, and you want to see him interact with the guys in the drills. You're not going to get hung up on, how many balls you're completing. You're throwing to complete strangers. They're smart enough to figure that out.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. Which group as a whole do you think is a cropper for this year's draft?
Ooh, I love the running backs in this draft. We're going to hear so much the phrase, the devalue of the position. I think we're going to hear that 1 billion times between now and the draft, but when I put my list together, I'm trying to find guys that I think, you like better than Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley. I mean, these guys are big-time studs. I think this will be the year we kind of get back to seeing some of these guys go in the first round, and there's plenty of depth as well. So I think it's a great year for running backs. Receivers is loaded again. Not a great year for quarterbacks, not a great year for corners.
What about not devaluing the position of running back, but devaluing the position at running back for veterans because of how these kids like Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard, Eddie Lacy have proven to be plug and play in the NFL last couple of years, Daniel?
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that. I mean, I think that second contract you'll see those numbers decline because we have such an influx of these guys coming in that are plug-and-play guys. So, to me, one of the biggest concerns with running backs coming into the NFL was, can they catch and can they block? Because forever in college football they didn't do either. Well, now with the spread, a lot of these running backs, they come into it with a little more experience in those two areas, and they can come in and play right away.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. What about the defensive side of the ball? We've hardly touched upon that. Again, first blush with the Combine coming up next week, DJ.
Plenty of edge rushers, Rich. So you're a team like the Atlanta Falcons that needs a pass rusher. You're going to have a lot of options. There's some big-time dudes. Randy Gregory from Nebraska, I think he's a stand-up 3-4 outside linebacker. He moves around like Gumby. He's very loose and athletic and explosive. You've got Shane Ray. It'll be interesting to see how big he is from Missouri. He's listed at 6'2.5", but it'll be big for him. If he comes in at 6'1", it could really hurt him. But man, he is fun to watch on tape. You've got Fowler from Florida is a really good player. Then you've got a ton of defensive tackles led by Leonard Williams from USC. So defensive linemen, edge rushers, this is going to be a pretty good one. I
don't know if you're aware of this, Daniel. I'm not going to hold you to anything that you've just said because this is a mock conversation. This is not a real conversation. This has just been a mock, okay?
Well, you know what, Rich? I'm a little bit disappointed. I've only done one mock draft already. So
what's the matter? Are you slacking?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because it hasn't really now. Because everybody watches your show, I'm sure I'm going to get hit up for one. So far, I've been kind of cruising along, actually watching tape and ranking players, and not guessing where they're going to go, which is all good by me.
Well, when do you get to Mayock status, where you can just basically say, "I'm not doing it. I'm going to do it once," and you can sponsor a television show around it? I mean, when can we start getting you to Mayock status, Daniel?
Probably when Tony starts delivering those heavy packages to my house.
I don't know. I mean, how many mock drafts do you think you're gonna do? You've only done one right now, right? You have Winston at the top. Again, this is not holding you to anything. It's just a mock.
Yeah, and I always say to people, look, my mock drafts are done with my ears, from what I'm hearing, and my top 50 list is done with my eyes. So it's a lot easier to defend your top 50 list than a mock draft. But I'd say over/under. I'll say 8. I'll say I have to do 8.
I'm going to take the over on that, Daniel.
You're going to go over?
Yeah, I'm going to go over because I sometimes see your tweets at 2 in the morning Eastern time. You're sitting there wherever with your kids asleep and you're watching tape.
Oh, leg up, icing the Achilles, by the way, as this is all going down. It's really a pretty sad scene, Rich.
No kidding. Well, I know you did that back in, like, November, didn't you?
Yeah. My basketball days are over.
Well, because I'm just saying, okay, so you're icing an Achilles. You're watching tape at 2 in the morning. That doesn't sound like the life of a well-rounded man. And I'm basically going to say it's sometimes just out of sheer boredom, you're going to just, for your fans, update a mock draft. You're going to do it probably once or twice more than you expect. I need 10 mocks out of you, Daniel. I'm not going to lie.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Can we do if I do a mock draft on delivery guys,
yes.
Is Tony go with the first pick?
I mean, how does he not?
Yeah.
I mean, Tony's schlepping 45-pound stuffs around Carl Eller's iron deers on his lawn.
The obstacles on the way to the side entrance, that's not easy.
That sounded like an episode of World's Strongest Man. I don't know if that was Tony Vermagnerson of Minnesota or not. But DJ, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
All right, Rich. Oh, hey, real quick.
Yes, sir.
Drew Christensen also helped Bill Smith, and I'm not trying to get in trouble with any of my research.
No, listen, it's a group effort at the NFL Media Group research
effort.
staff.
There you go.
It's an elaborate group effort. And that thing's thicker than some phone books.
No question.
Of large municipalities. Take care, DJ.
All right,
take care. That's Daniel Jeremiah. Move the Sticks podcast apparently has Brandon Browner on his podcast. That'll post, as they say, tomorrow.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.